Okay, we'll call our June 2nd meeting of the Cookeville City Council to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Woodford,
Present.
Councilman Henry,
Here.
Mayor Shelton,
Here.
Vice Mayor Epps,
Here.
Councilman Wallen,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite those that wish to do so to stand for the invocation given tonight by Pastor Mark Gaw of Washington Avenue Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag.
Can we pray? Lord, again, we thank you for this day that you've given to us. Thank you for our city council, and I pray, Lord, that you just guide and lead them as they deal with the different agenda they have tonight and the issues they face. And Lord, we pray and thank you for them and guidance in their life. And we thank you for Christ who came to die on the cross. Through him we have eternal life. In his wonderful name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, consider approval of agenda as presented. Are there any changes, additions, or corrections?
No changes, Mayor.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Number 5, old business 5A, consider approval of minutes of council meeting held on May 19th, 2016. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
5B, hold a public hearing and consider on second and final reading ordinance 0160510, amending the budgets of the General State Street Aid Fund, Solid Waste Economic Development, Quality of Life, General Improvement Bond Funds of the City of Cookeville for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2016. Ms. Emmel.
Mayor and council members, this ordinance amends the budget for the current fiscal year. There have been no changes in any of the amounts or any of the funds since first reading, and I would recommend your approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. Any discussion? All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Item 6, consent agenda. 6A, set a date 7/7/16 for a public hearing on ordinance 0160614, closure and abandonment of an alley that extends from West 4th Street 200 feet south toward West 3rd Street between North Hickory Avenue and North Whitney Avenue and declaring it as surplus. Also 6B, set a date 7/7/16 for a public hearing on ordinance 0160615, closure and abandonment of Hargis Drive located between Jackson Street and Polly Drive and declaring it as surplus. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
New business, 7A, hold a public hearing and consider on first reading ordinance 0160506, rezoning property located on West Broad Street, tax map number 53B-P-5.04 from MS Medical Services to CL Local Commercial. Mr. Mills.
Mayor and council members, this property is located on West Broad Street and Chestnut Avenue. As you can see on the screen, the rezoning was initiated by the property owner, Aaron Bernhardt of Bernhardt LLC. The property, as you can see on the map, is contiguous with CL and MS zoning to the east, with CL and RD, single-family residential, and duplex residential to the west, and CL zoning to the south, with MS zoning to the north. The parcel is depicted as Tract 4 on the City of Cookeville CRMC West Broad, Chestnut, and West 3rd Property Division subdivision plat. According to the plat, the subject property consists of approximately 1.767 acres or 76,972 square feet. Here's an aerial view of the property. This is Tract 4 of that division. Tracts 1 and 2 were located on 3rd Street, and they're zoned as RD. And again, this property is zoned as MS. Here is the existing zoning. These tracts were declared as surplus by the City of Cookeville and Cookeville Regional Medical Center in March of 2014 and offered for sale. And as I said, tracts 1 and 2 are zoned as RD. The bid to purchase for tracts 1, 2, and 4 were approved by the City Council and the Medical Center early this year, and the properties were purchased in April. Mr. Bernhardt has indicated that he purchased the properties with the goal of developing a single-family attached townhouse development similar to what he has developed on the west side of Chestnut Avenue. which is known as the West Broad Cottages. Our 2030 plan indicates the property is located primarily within an area best suited for local commercial use. The plan also indicates that the property is within an area identified as being in need of redevelopment and revitalization. Mr. Bernhardt's proposal for a townhouse development complies with the mixed-density residential development land use classification, which is also shown in our land use plan. Single-family attached dwellings are a use permitted on review by the Planning Commission in the CL zoning district. The proposed rezoning was approved by the Planning Commission and is recommended by the Planning Department. Before you consider, we did have a concern from a resident, a disgruntled citizen at Planning Commission. I don't see him here tonight, but he was concerned that the bid process was not properly followed, and I want to spend just a second to assure the public that our bid process was properly followed. That's the timeline shown here, but we did advertise and bid this 3 different times. The first bid was rejected, the second bid, we had no bid, and then the third bid was approved. There's the timeline that we followed, and then here's copies of the 3 ads for the 3 bids. So we did follow the proper process for this. But this has been recommended by the Planning Commission, is recommended by the Planning Department.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing portion of the meeting on this item. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this matter? Okay. We will close the public hearing portion, and is there a motion on this matter?
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. Any discussion among the council? Seeing none, all vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
7B, hold a public hearing and consider on first reading ordinance 0160507, rezoning a portion of 1976 North Dixie Avenue from RD Single Family and Duplex Residential to CL Local Commercial. Mr. Mills.
Mayor and council members, as you say, this property is located on North Dixie. Here's the current zoning around the property and the existing site. As you can see, the subject property zoning is split, with the northwestern part zoned as CL and the southeastern portion zoned as RD. At the time the current zoning was established, the property was in 2 parcels, with the zoning break line running with the shared property line. So previously this was 2 separate parcels, and at some point in the last 15 years it was combined into 1 tract. As you can see on the screen, the subject property is contiguous with CL and RD zoning to the east, CL zoning to the west, and with RD zoning to the south and MS zoning to the north. The property consists of approximately 1.96 acres or 85,000 square feet in total, and the portion requested for rezoning consists of approximately 1.1 acre or 47,900 square feet. Our future land use concept plan indicates that the property would be best suited for local commercial use. Here's the existing zoning, an aerial view. And here's our future land use plan, and you can see where this property fits on there. The plan also indicates that the property is on the northern fringe of an area identified as being in need of redevelopment and revitalization. The proposed rezoning was approved by the Planning Commission and is recommended by the Planning Department.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing portion of the meeting on this agenda item. Is there anyone that would like to address the council or this agenda item? No? All right, that closes the public hearing portion. We'll now open the business portion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
7C, hold a public hearing and consider on first reading ordinance 0160508, rezoning the northeast corner of Breeding Avenue and Flat Hollow Road from RS15 Single Family Residential to RS10 Single Family Residential. Mr. Mills.
Mayor and council members, as you stated, this property is located on Breeding Avenue and Flat Hollow Road. Here's the existing zoning of the site. And as you can see from this property, which extends from 10th to Breeding, this is all 1 parcel right here. This is a zoning break line. As you can see on this map, the zoning of the property is split, with the northern 1/3 zoned as CL Local Commercial and the southern 2/3 zoned as RS15. A plan for a single-family attached townhouse development of the portion of the property zoned as CL has already been approved by the Planning Commission, so we have a plan for development already approved for this portion of the property. As you can see from the map, this property that's proposed for rezoning is contiguous with RS10 zoning to the east, RS15 zoning to the south and west, and with CL zoning to the north. Adjacent to the east of this property is the Manning Place subdivision, which is located here, which is also zoned under the requested zone of RS10. The portion of the subject property requested for rezoning consists of approximately 2.87 acres, or 125,000 square feet. Here's again the existing zoning. This is from our land use plan, our 2030 plan. It indicates that the property, the portion of the property requested for rezoning is best suited for lower density residential development. Both the RS-15 and RS-10 zoning districts are appropriate within this land use classification. The RS-15 and RS-10 zoning districts are each primarily intended for single-family detached residential development. The most significant difference between the two zoning districts are minimum lot size, minimum lot width at setback line, and minimum setback requirements. In the RS-15 zoning district, the minimum lot size requirement is 15,000 square feet. The minimum lot width at setback line is 100 feet, and the minimum setback requirements are 30 feet for the front yard, 10 for the side, and 25 feet for the rear. In the RS-10 zoning district, the minimum lot size requirement is 10,000 square feet, with the minimum lot width at setback requirement being 75 feet, the minimum setbacks for the front yard 25, 10 for the side, and 20 for the rear. Approval of the requested rezoning would increase the number of lots that could potentially be created if the property were to be subdivided. Based on the dimensions of the subject property, the planning department estimates that a maximum of 6 lots could be created through subdivision under the current zoning. Under the proposed RS-10 zoning, the planning department estimates that a maximum of 8 lots could be created through subdivision. Subject to the planning commission's review of the rezoning request, Mr. Bernhardt submitted to the planning department a preliminary subdivision plat of the property under the requested RS-10 zoning. He also submitted renderings and photographs of the types of structures that would be built there. These were two of the things that were noted the most, to my recollection, at the planning commission meeting. There was concerns about what was it going to look like. This is the actual plat of the development, showing the 8 lots. Here's the existing proposal that's been developed. These are the 8 lots that could be developed if the property were to be rezoned. The plat indicates that each of the proposed 8 lots would be greater than 13,800 square feet in land area, even after dedicating significant land area as right-of-way along Breeding Avenue and Flat Hollow Road. And when I refer to dedicating right-of-way from Flat Hollow Road, they will dedicate, or will be required to dedicate in right-of-way 25 feet from center line and also on Breeding. So that takes away from that land area that they would have. So these lots would have been all over 15,000 even under RS-10 zoning without that dedication to the city of Cookeville. Also, and I believe we talked about this at our work session on Tuesday, I gave you a plat of the Manning Place subdivision. At least 4 of the lots in the 14-lot Manning Place subdivision are smaller than any of the proposed lots under this rezoning of 8 lots. The proposed rezoning was approved by the Planning Commission and is recommended by the Planning Department.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing portion of the meeting. Would anyone like to speak to this matter? Yes, sir. If you'll step to the podium and state your name and address. A statement of no more than 3 minutes may be made pertaining to this item, and once the timer sounds, if you will wrap up your comments within 10 seconds, please.
Okay, I'm Fred Breeding, and I live at 912 Flat Hollow Road and joined this property up through there. And my thoughts are a little bit more of a question. Mr. Mills tonight has showed a little bit on here the first time we saw anything about the development. And my thoughts is why I wish it were left like it is. It was zoned that way when I bought my property, and I don't know the reason for rezoning. And I would like to know the reason for why. We've heard the water situation, the planning commission heard this, and I have a sump pump under mine. And what I'm saying, why is the developer got more influence than the people who live there? It seems that way to me. And Mr. Mills can do it, or somebody could explain to me if they can, and Mr. Woodford made an effort, and I still hadn't understand why you think that higher density is better. I would like to comply with the zoning, and I'm sure there are times when zoning needs to be changed, but not every time, and I don't think this is one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breeding. Anyone else?
My name is Abel Machine, and I'm right here in the corner, 910 Oakland Drive. And like Mr. Breeding said before, we have been in some of the meetings prior to this, and we have seen a number of plats prior to this with townhouses and different things. They haven't been approved. This looks like the final approval. We haven't seen anything like he showed here before. And the concerns that everybody has is, number one, the water. These neighbors here, prior development, there before, they have water issues in their basements. They have water issues in their backyards. I'm right in the corner. I have traffic issues. People are running up and down Breeding Avenue at high speeds. One of the things we have to do is try to buffer that up, because we have young people riding bicycles, and I have grandkids right there in that corner. Third issue, any of these homes going to have any access to this flat hollow road? This is like a little driveway. Robert, my neighbor, myself, Fred, we all have problems getting in and out of here right now. We have a number of people coming out from Manning Place. They have to look to make sure they don't run into us when we back out of our homes. So that's why the people who live in the area are so concerned. Number one, we are going to have traffic increase. So is there a traffic study what this is going to bring? Because we're talking about the 8 units here. What about what's going to be built out front, which is zone commercial? Yes. We understand that. Is there going to be a building up there? We don't know. So is that going to create additional traffic? Where is the water going to go after it gets displaced? Is it going to go in somebody's backyard? We want to know that too. Mr. Mill tried to displace some of the regular systems that work. Some of the pools and everything they have, retaining ponds, everything's fine. But we have no knowledge of that. And prior development did the same thing. They said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Well, the neighbors' basements are full of water. If you had a basement that gets full of water and you got to have a pump in your basement, you will be worried yourself. I'm worried the traffic. I don't have the water problem in my basements. I don't have a basement. We do have the water problem on the street. Whenever it rains, the water stays on Breeding. It's, half a foot high. Stays for a long time. That lot right there is absorbing some of that water. What's going to happen? We know you can build on 15,000 square feet. We know you can build 6 homes. We all knew that when we bought the property. Now we're going to build more homes. Now you're going to cover up the ground more. Now we're going to have additional water problem. Not only us, but the people that are going to buy the 8 homes. I understand. I've been a developer. I'm a businessman. I understand it's better to build 8 than to build 6. It makes common sense. We all know that. And we're not against that. We're not here to stop business. We live in a capital country, capitalism, so far. But anyway, we have to look at what the people are going to suffer when that happens. That's our issue, and that's our concerns. We've never been given a new plat map. This is one of the last ones I got that we're going to build 20-something properties on there.
Thank
and we've been
you,
going
sir.
for months with this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name's Aaron Bernhardt, and just to answer a few of the questions, all the houses are actually going to face towards Breeding Avenue. And with some of the road dedication that we'll provide on Flat Hollow, since we're not going to point those houses towards Flat Hollow, they can expand that. The city can expand it in the future. Basically, as far as water drainage and things of that nature, we always get everything engineered and always do whatever the city requires.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this item? Okay. That will close the public hearing portion. We'll now open the business portion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
James, the calls that I've had from people who may be concerned about this have to do with issues that have been mentioned, and I know your office has probably looked at those and as the Planning Commission, but I would like to hear your response to, because these are legitimate questions, as it relates to traffic and as it relates to specifically drainage, your thoughts, your reaction, the significance that it could cause as a result of the rezoning.
Well, in regards to drainage, they will have to comply with the city's stormwater regulations. They'll have to be reviewed by the Public Works Department to ensure that it complies with all city requirements. In terms of traffic, I'm not a traffic engineer. We did have one on the planning commission, but the difference between 6 houses and 8 houses is pretty insignificant on a through public street. We're not talking about a 100-unit apartment complex. But I don't think there's going to have a great impact. Now, you're going to have additional vehicles. There's going to be people live there, but you're not going to have, it's not like it's a large apartment complex.
What does it mean exactly that they would have to meet the standards, the drainage standards? And why wouldn't these additional units, in your view?
In terms of stormwater, well, it's based on how much area is impervious. They'll have to, when he develops his plans by an engineer, they'll have to submit them to Public Works. It's hard for me to say exactly what those would be until we see an actual development of how much of the land is going to be impervious, how big are the houses going to be, because the more impervious you have, that kicks into numbers on how much you have to retain. I believe, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, at a minimum, they'll be required to retain the first inch of rainfall on site. So that's a pretty significant requirement there. That should help reduce any drainage. But we can't say even after they meet all requirements, even with 6 houses, that you're not going to have, there's not going to be runoff. The water runs off the site now. But we'll ensure that they meet our requirements, either at 6 or 8.
Yes, sir.
I've been contacted by some of the people that live in the area, and their main thoughts, as y'all have both said, has been the drainage. It's in a low area. Manning Place, Flat Hollow Road is very narrow, and I think dedicating more land to widening the road is a good thing, because it's hard to get emergency fire trucks and things in there. I think that can be done, but it needs to be widened. The drainage problem is very significant because it's in a low area. Fortunately, we do have stormwater regulations that if any development is going to be done, they have to comply with that, which is to retain that first water. But I believe the residents still have a problem with drainage, and they will continue whether 6 or 8 houses are built there or not. So I'm cognizant of the thoughts of the residents, but I don't think this project by Mr. Bernhardt is going to adversely make it a lot worse if they comply with the stormwater regulations that we have on the books.
On Flat Hollow Road, Greg, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we've already widened it once. It's 18 feet. When Manning Place first went in, I believe it was only 11 feet wide. And it was developed, I remember because that's when I first started with the city, it was developed before we had standards that were required developers to upgrade substandard streets. So they built that off for 11, 12-foot lane, and we've gone in and widened as much as we could under the existing right-of-way. And I believe it's 18 feet, if I'm not mistaken, Greg. But what this would do, at least for this portion, if we deem it appropriate, it gives us enough land to widen at least this portion a little further. You won't be able to down here where Mr. Breeding lives because there's not enough right-of-way there without him dedicating right-of-way to allow that. But one other point, and I think Mr. Bernhardt has just said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bernhardt, that, and I'll go back to the plat, they have no plans to have driveways to Flat Hollow Road. So this shouldn't affect traffic on Flat Hollow Road. Again, you would have additional driveways on Breeding.
Yes, sir. I have a question, Mr. Mayor. This question is for James. If the residents on Flat Hollow Road that abut Flat Hollow Road, if they consented to granting easement to the city, would it be possible to enlarge that road? Or
well, I mean, yes.
They would have
to dedicate right-of-way in the same fashion that we require on all new subdivision developments. It's not. Let me point out, Mr. Bernhardt's not doing anything special here. We are required by the subdivision regulations. When you have a substandard street, by that I mean with less than required right-of-way, and you subdivide off that, you're required to dedicate at a minimum 25 feet from center line. And that's how we can acquire right of way to go in and do these widening projects when we need to.
But previously, as you mentioned, you said you just came on when Manning Place was developed. We didn't have those regulations.
That's correct. We did not have those.
But it does offer an option if what I've heard is the two concerns are traffic and water. And of course, with our water engineering, we hope and we are confident that should help that tremendously and take care of the majority of that. But the other question was traffic, and even though the developers mentioned that all the houses will again face breeding, but as far as they said, they can't even back out, without having to be careful about people running into them. I'm just wondering if it could be an option in the future, if there could be some dedication of right of way that city could possibly go in there and enlarge that road to make it at least feel safer. I know a lot of times there's a lot of roads out here that just need a little trimming up with bushes and things like that, but if you can actually enlarge that road a little bit, it would certainly help.
That's up to the council.
That's up to
Just
the
one
mayor.
second.
It's up to the mayor.
Let me see, do you have anything, Jim?
Yeah, I want
Okay.
to. The city gave me the privilege of being, you people electing me to serve on the council. And the council gave me the privilege of serving on the planning commission. And one of the books they hand out, and I've still got it, The Job of a Planning Commissioner, and don't worry, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. Prerequisites to doing an effective job. And there's one section in here, continuity. Does the commission work toward decisions from a set of principles, the general plan, policy precedents, or does it fly by the seat of its pants on each new agenda item? The cliche excuse often used when this occurs is, we aren't bound by anything when a proposal comes in. We consider everything on its merits. A commission functioning as work group has direction, and each of its decisions is linked to fundamental principles. The reason I bring this up is because when I voted on this, on the Planning Commission, I voted in favor of changing the zoning from RS-15 to RS-10. And I've gone back through my notes and reflected on this because I try to be fair and impartial and transparent when I do all these decisions. And I go back to some of my notes, and I'm going to refer to a situation that happened 3 years ago on the corner of 8th and Jefferson. There was a piece of property that was sold that was zoned RS-15. And the developer, Mr. Lynn, wanted to change the zoning to RS-10 so he could put one more house on it. There were people in the neighborhood that objected to this. I voted both on the planning and the council meeting to deny this on the principle that the developer knew what the property was zoned when he purchased the piece of property. Reason I bring this up, I've got to be consistent in how I vote and how you, the public, view me as being fair and impartial. Because this happened on another part of section of town, and where this happens within a block of where I live, I've got to be fair and equal and give an opinion that is the same. In this case, I'm going to vote to deny just for my personal reason, to be consistent in how I view projects that come before the city. I do not have anything against the developer, Aaron or Jerry. They have done great work. I've approved many projects. I will probably continue to approve many projects. Because this is zoned RS-15, RS-15 instead of RS-10, they will develop something. It's not going to stop the development. They're going to do something. Matter of fact, when I came by to visit you, I somewhat liked their original plan where they were wanting to combine the whole lot into a CL and with deed restriction. But the people in the neighborhood objected and the developer backed away, and they were decided to develop it as it is currently zoned. CL in the front, RS-15 in the back. So I'm trying to, well, I'm not trying, I am explaining myself. I have to be personally consistent, whether it's in my neighborhood or across the town. I want to be fair and impartial on this, and I don't want to show favoritism toward one developer over the other. I like to have the facts justify my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Couple questions. So there will be no access onto Flat Hollow. You said there's 25 feet from center dedicated. So if you said the road was 18 feet, so there's currently about 9 feet on each side of center now. So that's another 16 feet dedicated, approximately 7 or so off that property.
I think it's between 10 and 15.
Okay. And then, so I guess I've talked to several folks, the British have called me. We're not talking really here about whether it's going to be developed or not. We're talking about whether it's going to be developed with 6 houses or 8 houses. And I guess that's where I fall down and arrive at. To me, I agree with the water issue, and that we do have specific regulations that have to be followed. But I guess as far as the traffic from 6 houses to 8 houses, I don't see that that's going to be a huge issue, and especially if the property behind, if Manning Place was RS-15, and so you were changing something adjoining it to that, but it's contiguous with RS-10, it makes sense, and especially if some of the lots are going to be the same size as at least 4 or 5 of the lots in Manning Place, it does seem consistent and reasonable to do that. There will be more traffic. There's going to be more traffic whether there's 6 houses or 8. I too would have liked to have seen. My understanding was there was a plan to include both parcels of property, because obviously something different can be developed on the front side of this property facing 10th Street, and that can be done now and there will be no zoning hearing about that because it's already can mesh within what is going to be done. I would have liked to have seen something that I understood that might have been developed, including this, that with deed restrictions, that I think could have been great for the whole neighborhood, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. So I do think it's reasonable to see what we're looking at here. All right, any other questions? I've closed the public hearing portion. I'll tell you what, I'll allow 2, if you have a question, I'll allow 2 questions from the audience, and then we're going to vote. So if you have a question, I'd be glad for you to come back up. And if you have a question, if you want to ask, and Mr. Gall, if you have a question or comment, that'll be fine.
I guess my overall question is why were you, who is benefiting for it, and why was the zoning considering, why are we changing it, I guess is my question. Why are we changing it?
Let me try to answer. We have a need for single-family detached housing in the city. Let's come along that, and I think, Councilman Epps, you remember in our survey, that's the #1 demand in the city is single-family detached housing. So that's part of a major goal for the city. The other thing is that we reviewed this is to not deny this developer the same rights as the people that are adjacent to this. It's the same zoning, RS-10 zoning of adjacent property. It's the other question would be, why deny this developer the same rights that these people enjoy? That's part of the logic that went through it and reviewing it before the Planning Commission.
My name is Jerry Gall, Mr. Mayor and Council. 2 or 3 things, if I may. And I appreciate Mr. Woodford's position about being consistent. The only thing I see about that is I believe everything that joined that property was RS-15. It's unprecedented in the city of Cookeville, to my knowledge, when you have sewer available to a lot that's RS-15, for it not to be able to be changed to RS-10. This is definitely not a spot zone, because to the east of the lot, Fred, someone had to rezone your property for you to be able to buy that house and move into that area. Your lot happens to be one of the smallest lots in the subdivision. No big deal. But RS-10 is, as Mr. Mills pointed out, 10,000 square feet. One of the So it is unprecedented not to grant this from every time that I've ever seen it requested. And if this property to the east was RS-15, we wouldn't be here. But we have RS-10 to the east, CL to the north. Our original request, as has been pointed out, was to do CL. We had a really nice upscale development plan for that area that I know all of you, once you saw it, would have been proud of it, and probably some of you may have even wanted to move into it. We were real excited about it, and we really was wanting to do it. It was going to be one of our higher upgrade projects that we've done. But we got the word that the neighborhood was very upset about this. We responded to the neighborhood. We backed off. We pulled our request because I was told by some of the neighbors that you didn't have a problem with us doing single family, but you didn't want the CL with the attached single family homes. So we respected that. We backed off, pulled away. And we had no idea there was going to be any kind of concern about us going in there and rezoning from RS-15 to RS-10 to give us 8 houses instead of 6 houses. We're going to front breeding. We're going to be moved up. These lots, as Mr. Mills pointed out earlier, are going to have almost the same density as an RS-15 requirement, square footage wise, for the lot. So, one of the things, and we've always abided by whatever the city says we do.
If you'll try to wrap up in about 10 or 15 seconds, sir.
Okay, and
Please.
so we would do that again, but the point I want to really make is we've got 190 feet deep lots. The house is going to sit up front. There's going to be a lot of green space between the rear of our houses and your property. There's a, it's not going to be impervious back there. So it's going to be something that you could be proud of, and I promise you, we don't do it shabby work, and it will be something we'll be proud of.
Thank you, sir.
I would appreciate your favorable approach to this.
Thank you, sir. All right, any other questions?
James, one more question. I want to come back to this. I want to make sure, back to the drainage issue. So, in the best professional opinion you have, if this rezoning is approved, how much more significant could the draining issue, I mean, obviously you've looked at it, obviously your department has, and I guess it's been considered by the planning commission, we never know, but I mean, what's the likelihood that could?
Well, that's hard for me to say because I'm not an engineer. I depend on our engineers to review these,
Sure,
and I depend on the adequacy of our regulations to ensure that. But I'm thinking in any, we can misjudge, miscalculate in any development, but I'm confident our regulations are sufficient to handle and regulate stormwater.
So if you didn't have that kind of confidence, obviously your department wouldn't have recommended this change.
No, and it is true, the Manning place it's basically in a hole. And that does have a lot of water that goes through there. There's no doubt. And I remember, like I said, when that first started, there's a huge drainage area that runs to the back side here, through here. I think I gave y'all copies of the plat, but there's a huge drainage that runs right through here. But all this area drains this way. And any development at all is going to increase the amount of water that's run off. But the difference between 6 and 8 houses is minuscule.
I see. Thank you.
You said you could have a question, the two that spoke before?
One final one. Yes, sir.
One quick question.
Yes, sir.
I just want to know one thing.
Yes, sir.
When we developed this one, who calculated the water runoff? Because like you said, they have problems. So that's our concern. We're going to develop this one now. Respect to Mr. Goff, respect to everybody here, the city people. We respect you all, the city management and everything else. We just want to make sure that the problems by these developments that have been done in the past, and like Mr. Merrill explained, he doesn't really know, and they had issues, and you could make mistakes, don't make them again, because we got to pay for them. So you're here to serve the public. look at it before the final decision is made. If you think you can get the water out, and you think the problems are not gonna be worse, then you're gonna approve the eight lots. The difference between 8 and 6 is 25% more when you put a number to it. And you calculate our numbers. So the difference between 6 homes and 8 homes is 25% increase. So that's our concern. The water is the biggest concern, and I appreciate everybody trying to settle what we're doing. If it's 8, it's 8, but,
Yes, sir.
you know, don't continue to make the mistakes that other developments made.
I will.
That's my question.
Thank you. And I will say this, that the requirements and regulations are much different now than they were when that development was built. The state just changed, is that not right, Greg? The state changed within the last, this past January. So there are more stringent requirements to hold water on site, and those will be followed. That was not the case in the Manning Place, nor the development that happened. I mean, obviously, anytime you develop, it's the one next to it or downstream from it that happens, right? So all the things that have developed above that, those did not follow those. This one will have to follow that. And I can assure you our engineering department and we'll make sure that it's followed like that. And I know Mr. Gall and Mr. Bernhardt, they don't have any intention to cause problems for people either. They want to make a nice development as well, okay? So, yes, sir, I hear what you're saying, for sure. Any other questions? All vote.
4 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
Thank you. 7D, hold a public hearing, consider on first reading ordinance 0160509, amending the zoning code pertaining to revising the provision of the CL, CG, CR, and PCD zoning districts to allow retail package stores for the sale of alcoholic beverages to be located on parcels having street frontage and access on Spring Street between State Highway 111 east to the northern right-of-way of Interstate 40. Mr. Mills.
Mayor and council members, Mayor, as you explained, this ordinance would expand the area in which retail package stores for the sale of alcoholic beverages may be located. The proposed amendment was initiated at the request of Mr. Donnie Meadows. The area on the screen here depicts where the area that's been requested to expand where retail package stores may locate. This is the area that's currently allowed. The areas in pink are where you can locate a retail package store. This area was originally established in 2011 through the adoption of ordinance number 110202. This ordinance limited the location of retail package stores to the CBD, CL, CG, CR, and PCD zoning districts on parcels having street frontage and access on major arterial streets in the following locations: South Jefferson Avenue from Spring Street south to the northern right-of-way of I-40, South Willow Avenue from Broad Street south to the northern right-of-way of I-40, Spring Street from State Highway 111 west to the terminus of West Broad Street, West Jackson Street from South Willow Avenue west to Buffalo Valley Road, East 10th Street from North Washington Avenue east to city limits and Interstate Drive, Neal Street, and North Washington Avenue from East Broad Street north to East 12th Street. And again, they had to be located, the parcels had to be zoned as those zones that I just described. Retail package stores must also comply with the requirements of Title 8, Chapter 3 of the Municipal Code. Title 8, Chapter 3 requires that retail liquor stores be located at a minimum distance from churches and schools, and that's 200 feet and 400 feet. They are also required to contain a minimum floor space of 1,000 square feet and are not permitted to have drive-through windows. Since the adoption of the ordinance allowing retail package stores within the corporate limits, a total of 9 such establishments have opened. All 9 stores remain in operation. One is relocated across the street. These retail package stores in fiscal year 2015 generated $414,235. This is the area that's being proposed for an expansion. East Spring Street, which is US Highway 70 North between State Highway 111 and I-40, is classified as a major arterial street in our 2030 plan, and the majority of the properties with frontage on this segment of street are zoned as either CL or CG. At our Planning Commission review of this, we did have many owners of the existing package stores come, and they had concerns about expanding the areas in which such establishments may be located, and their primary concern was oversaturation of the market. The proposed zoning code amendment was approved by the Planning Commission and is recommended by the Planning Department.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing portion of the meeting. Would anyone like to speak on this matter? All righty. We'll close the public hearing, open the business portion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And is there a second? Second. I'll second it so we can discuss it. Would anyone like to, is there any comments?
James, members of the council, just bear with me just a second. I want to ask you some questions, James, to make sure that I don't misspeak or say anything that's not accurate. So if you'd let endure me just a minute, I want to chronologically kind of move through the history to what's brought us here. It's our community, which is where that kind of decision ought to be made, in my view, voted by referendum to have liquor stores in 2010, and you followed up with that in 2011. Is that
correct?
Is that where this started? And then it became, as I understand it, incumbent upon the city government to establish boundaries as to where those liquor stores might be placed, and then you went to work on that, your department. And it's my understanding that at that point in time, as you were doing that, you had numerous public hearings. Is that
Yes,
right?
it's several public hearings.
You had numerous work sessions to deal with that.
Yes.
It's my understanding, I wasn't on the council, and to their credit, Vice Mayor Epps and Councilman Woodford were, and I think they did a great job in outlining these boundaries. And you even, you had work sessions, you had public hearings, and it's my understanding also you had some adjustments that were made based on public input about where these boundaries would be. Is that not the case?
That's correct. We
Okay,
did
so
adjust and
so
we did
it was a
consider it.
pretty thorough examination and pretty thorough study before the final decision was made about the boundaries, correct?
I think so, yes, sir.
And has it worked pretty well? I mean, to this point, we have 9 liquor stores now, and they're all within the confines of those boundaries?
Yes.
Okay. Within the confines of those existing boundaries, are there plenty of room for more liquor stores?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So we've got ample space for more without expanding, is what I'm saying. I mean, just within the confines of that pink area that you pointed out already. There's
Yes,
this pink area,
there's
which we.
hundreds of acres in there.
Okay, so lots more liquor stores could be placed inside those boundaries, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, and as you pointed out, we have 9 liquor stores now.
That's correct.
And I guess some of my heartfelt concern about this request to expand is that in addition to that, and you know, and I'm not a prude, I enjoy a glass of wine. You may have seen me in restaurants from here in town drinking a glass of wine from time to time, so that's not what this is about. I'm not here to preach to you. But in addition to that, we've got 9 liquor stores. We've got 46 places in Cookeville where we can buy mixed drinks, should we choose, legally, businesses that offer those. Is that about right to your, I mean, that's the information I get from our city hall.
I've heard Kathy on that.
Kathy. We have, in addition to 9 liquor stores and 46 places we can buy mixed drinks, we have 115 places where we can buy beer, 115. Beyond that, we've got wine coming to our grocery stores, and the legislature has passed that. And in addition to that, kind of as a side issue, not really this one, we have a businessman in town who is proposing to open a new brewery in a legal place, and in spite of the fact that you can toss a stone easily and hit a church, and toss it in another direction and hit another church and a Christian school, and toss it in another direction and hit an alcohol rehab center. It's perfectly legal where that brewery is proposed to be, as I understand it, at least from our attorneys who's been researching it. There's not any city codes or not any state laws that would prohibit it from being there in spite of that. So we've kind of reached a point where, you know, if a person wants to, legally, they can stand on any spot in the city limits of Cookeville and take a dozen steps and find something to drink, either a beer or a mixed drink, or buy a bottle themselves. Is that not right? I mean, that seems to be where we are. And so, you know, that's, and as leaders of the city, we have to ask our question, you know, particularly James and gentlemen on the council, if we have ample space within the confines of this boundary, which by your own testimony and word, ample study, lots of public hearings, lots of workshops, lots of adjustments for the city and study, and as I say to the credit of Councilman Woodford and Vice Mayor Epps, had to approve that. And there's lots of space within the confines of that to put as many liquor stores almost as you choose. I'm just wondering if it makes us a better city, or if it makes sense to keep expanding those boundaries in light of everything I've talked about, expanding those boundaries when there's plenty of space in the boundaries that already exist. And that's my concern. It's not about capping anything. It's not about limiting competition, because, go within the confined boundaries, which has worked very, very well and is very well designed, thanks to your department, the council that approved it at that time, and work within those boundaries and put up as many as you legally can or want to, and go out there and compete. But I don't see the reason and the rationale nor the justification of exceeding those boundaries when, in my view, there's really not the need for it at this point in time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Right. You want to go first?
Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
When we did this, and Larry can chime in anytime, when we did this 5 years ago, we did this with a lot of thought and planning and input from the community. As far as the boundaries, let me back up first. We decided with a consensus that we're going to let the free market. We were not going to come up with an arbitrary number, 2, 3, 4, or 5 to start with. We're going to let whoever had the money, and if they could get the location, which was decided to be a major arterial and in commercial zoning. So there was not going to be any zoning changes. As far as boundaries, it wasn't an exact science, but we had 2 requests, and it happened to be the northern and southern boundaries. There was a minister that had concern about the northern part of the city once you got above 12th Street, that felt like it was not in the best interest to have anything north of 12th Street. To the south, the rescue mission made some points that we didn't need to be south of the interstate. Those were the only 2 definitive boundaries that we had. As far as east-west, we just kind of looked, if my memory serves me correctly on this, that we looked in the east and west to see population in the major arterial. We felt like Willow was kind of a natural. There wasn't that much development west of Willow. We could have gone down Highway 70 if we so chosen to do so. Heading east, 111 had to be, there was not much development east of Willow, of 111. And it was not a scientific. Now the situation we have here tonight, pushing it toward I-40, it will stop there because our city limits ends roughly at I-40. So you would have we could not go beyond the city limits. And the area in question is all commercial, and it is definitely a major arterial. The only pushback we had at planning was from competing people already in the industry. There were no neighbors, there were no schools or churches going to be affected by this. To me, this is a natural progression. It's not like I'm promoting this. We are not definitely putting a cap on this. We want to promote free enterprise and let the market dictate how many we have. The location, it meets all the criteria that we set out and could do 5 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I would like to say something.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to really try not to be redundant because Dwight and Jim have made some very good points. And again, yes, I was on the council when we did this back in 2011. And Jim, yeah, you're correct. Wasn't really very scientific. We looked at a few things. It had to be commercial. It had to be in a commercial area. It had to be in our arterial area. And certainly this proposal matches those. The third thing was we had to be good neighbors. We wanted to be good neighbors, and we spent a lot of time listening to the neighbors in the neighborhood about whether they wanted a liquor store in that area. And as for example, I voted pretty much for all the things that kind of commonsensically and as a good neighbor came up. The one I didn't vote for was the one, I don't know if you remember, Jim, not, but the one that was liquor store that's placed by TTU. I didn't want that to, I spoke with some TTU folks, and they felt like they just didn't need a liquor store close to a university campus, and I voted against that. Of course, my vote was overturned, and that's fine. But so I'm going to vote no on this proposal simply because I don't know for now, because it does meet the requirements that we started with, but no for now, just because. And if it comes up again, and there's the point proven that we're going to be good neighbors, and I just haven't had time to hear personally. I haven't had time to hear from those folks that live on that long strip there that are going to have some. It's going to affect them in a non-neighborly way. So I'm going to vote no simply for that reason right there.
Jeff, do you have anything? I hear all of our comments up here. All make sense. My only comment would be, obviously, we are continuing to grow, and service needs to as well. These are commercial zones. I don't think it would be a bad thing for it to be there. I think free market will dictate whether new stores come in. New stores could come in now, as Councilman Henry said, within the current zone. I don't necessarily think that doing this will mean that one necessarily will or won't come into the new zone. It may, but certainly new stores could happen now. So as we continue to grow, we definitely do need to provide more areas for service. But certainly respect all of your opinions, and everybody has their right to that, and no worries there. So, any other comments?
One more briefly, if I could, Mayor. And again, I appreciate the logic and the comments of everybody up here. And you're probably, it wasn't scientific. I've heard that a couple times from you, James, and from Jim. But whether it was scientific or what the motive or strategy was, it's worked. It's worked really well, regardless of how the decision was made. And I commend the council and your office for laying it out that way, because it has worked. And the term that Jim used, natural progression. And I'm all about that. Most of my life I've been in business for myself, so I would have been against capping. I would have been opposed to that. I would have, let the free market take care of itself, let people get out there and compete, and that's what makes our economy work. But we don't have any need for natural progression now when we got so much space inside the existing footprint, inside the existing boundaries. Why should we expand that dirt when we've got plenty of room the way you guys laid it out a few years ago? So this is not about capping competition. This is saying, hey, go ahead and build all you want to build within the confines of what the city council prescribed. And really, that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Any other comments? All vote?
2 yes votes, 3 no, motion fails.
Thank you. 7E, hold a public hearing, consider on first reading ordinance 0160611, providing a tax levy for the 2016-2017 fiscal year. Ms. Emmel.
Mayor and council members, this first ordinance tonight sets the tax levy for next fiscal year. And as you're aware of, it is a reappraisal year, and we have not yet received the certified tax rate. So the first sentence of this ordinance says that there shall be a property tax levy equal to 90 cents or the certified tax rate, if different, rounded up to the nearest whole cent. So that 90 cents is the same rate that we had this year. The only thing that's different is that how we're going to allocate it. As you can see there, we're going to put 77 cents into the general fund, 4 cents into the GEO debt service fund, 4 cents into economic development fund, 1 cent into the quality of life fund, and 4 cents into the solid waste fund, and that's the breakdown of the 90 cents. That should generate revenue of $6,638,000, and that's net of a 5% delinquency rate. And a penny on the tax rate is $73,765, and I would recommend your approval.
Thank you. Well, at this time, we'll open the public hearing portion up. If anyone would like to speak about the budget as presented. All right, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. A second. Any discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to thank Brenda and her staff and Mike, city manager, for all your hard work on this, because we had discussed about charging a fee for solid waste, sanitation fee. I'm sure some of the ratepayers were maybe dreading this, and you to readjust the tax, inside how we allocate it. The council was concerned about Public Works not having funding for new equipment, garbage pickup. This will allow him to be able to rotate his fleet so he gets a more current fleet to do the job. And I think the citizens of Cookeville will appreciate this, both from the tax standpoint or fee, not having an increase, but getting the services that they expect and deserve. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
I think this is a good long-term solution, because then they'll get the growth on the property tax too. And if you recall, back in the late 1990s, solid waste used to get a percentage of the property tax. It was 3 cents. And back in the I think it was fiscal year 1999 is when they quit doing that, so.
I will echo that. I appreciate the creative thinking as we challenged you all to figure out a way not to do the residential rate. I would go another step further and say I think this is, as you said, the way to do it is to allocate funds to this, tax funds to this. I'd like to see us do the same thing with transportation at some point soon in the next budget or two, that we can figure out a way to put some pennies of the tax rate into improving our streets and roads and paving and all those kind of things beyond the State Street Aid Fund. So hopefully we can look at that in the future budget as well. Any other comments? All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Okay, 7F, hold a public hearing, consider on first reading ordinance 0160612, authorizing appropriations for financial aid to a public service, nonprofit, and charitable organizations for the 2016-2017 fiscal year. Ms. Emmel.
Mayor and council members, this ordinance appropriates a total of $778,999 to local government agencies, joint ventures, and nonprofits. The first group there I have for you to look at is the governmental agencies and joint ventures. It appropriates a total of $325,000 to the Putnam County Library, $53,589 to the Tennessee Rehabilitation Center, $47,530 to the Cookeville Senior Citizen Center, the Upper Cumberland Regional Airport, $38,000 with $10,000 designated for the air show. The Chamber of Commerce, a total of $105,000. $30,000 will be used for operations, $50,000 for the Highlands Initiative, and $25,000 for the Sports Council. The Putnam County Emergency Management Agency, $25,400. Cityscape will receive a total of $48,306. $25,000 is for operations, $8,000 is for the 4th of July celebration, and $15,306 designated for Fall Fun Fest. And the Tennessee Central Heritage Rail Trail Authority will receive $7,424. That's a total of $650,249 for governmental agencies and joint ventures. A couple things I would point out. The Senior Citizen Center had requested some additional funds for a van, shuffleboard table, and computer items, and we were not able to fund those in this budget. And the Chamber of Commerce had asked for additional funds for economic development in the Highlands Initiative, and we were not able to fund those. The money for the Highlands Initiative and the Sports Council, we actually transfer that money from the Economic Development Fund. And what was funded is the air show for the Upper Cumberland Regional Airport. So that's the governmental agencies and joint ventures. And on the Senior Citizen Center, we actually own that building and they use it for their activities. And over the last couple years, we have made an effort to try to do repairs and maintenance on the building. So in the last 2 years, we've done $217,053 worth of repairs and maintenance, including a roof. We have a list of things that we want to do to keep that building up to date. So as funding permits, we do a little bit at a time. And in this year's budget, you'll see a little later, we have budgeted seal and restriping the parking lot for $4,800. So. The nonprofits, the guidance for contributing to nonprofits can be found in TCA section 654-111. And it basically says that no shareholder, individual associated with the organization can benefit from the net earnings of the organization, and the organization must provide year-round services benefiting the general welfare of the citizens. And all the organizations must file with the city an annual report or an audit report of their operations. We handled the nonprofits a little bit differently this year. The process was an application was required, and we formed a committee of 7 Cookeville senior citizens that are not affiliated with any of the organizations. We gave them an amount to allocate of $120,000, which is an increase of $14,900 over this year. They reviewed all the applications. They met together as a group 4 times. And I'll note that they received application requests in over of $190,000. And they made the recommendations for the allocation. And the allocation for the nonprofits that are included in this ordinance are the Cookeville Arts Council, $20,000, the Cumberland Art Society, $2,000, the Clean Commission, $9,000, UCHRA Meals on Wheels Program, $2,000, Genesis House, $12,000, Helping Hands of Putnam County, $12,000, WCTE TV, $10,000, H.G. Stevens Center for Child Abuse, $5,000, Kids Putnam, $6,000, the 13th Judicial District Recovery Courts, $15,000, Court-Appointed Special Advocates, CASA, $2,500, Child Advocacy Center, $6,000, Putnam County Veterans Organization, $6,000, the Veterans Honor Guard, $3,000, the Upper Cumberland Family Justice Center, $8,250. Those were the recommendations from the committee. But we have, the city leadership has added one additional appropriation to their recommendation, and that is directly to the Putnam County Imagination Library Program, $10,000. That brings the total appropriation for the nonprofits to $128,750. All that being said, then, let me summarize. The applications received that were not funded. We received an application from the Humane Society of Putnam County for $7,500. UCHRA requested funds for the residential centers of $6,544. The Cookeville Regional Charitable Foundation, $20,000. Cookeville Rescue Mission, $12,500. Impact Leadership, $6,000, and the Cookeville Children's Museum, $1,500. Now, all that being said, just to summarize what this ordinance has before you, is a total of $778,999 in appropriations, $650,249 for governmental agencies and joint ventures, and $128,750 for nonprofits. And I would be glad to answer any questions, but I'd recommend your approval.
Thank you. We'll open the public hearing portion. Does anyone have any comments or would like to speak about this? All right, we'll close the public hearing portion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion?
Mayor, if I could, I'd like to publicly, this is the first time we've had a citizens committee to help us with this process. And I met with them the first time and said, I wish I could tell you this is going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. We had, as you can see, much more requests for money than we had funds to distribute. But to that group who did a yeoman's job of doing this, I just want publicly to say how much we appreciate all their work for the city and what their help in this process has meant to us.
I'd say too, as Councilman Henry said, I do appreciate them doing this process. It was very important, and we did change. One thing was changed, and I think it's important to note that part of that, the Imagination Library, we had a great deal of discussion about that. This is basically a one-time deal for this year. We have challenged the, first of all, it's not going through UCHRA at all. It will be paid directly to Imagination Library through Imagination Library through our public library. Secondly, we have challenged them to that there will need to be fundraising done so that they can help facilitate this in the future. That's how all these across the state were designed. They were not ever designed that it be a totally governmental funded situation, but that's what's happened here, and it's been cut before. I will say this, that they are blessed that they do have a good balance in there and able to distribute these books. But secondly, there's a tremendous amount of money in the Imagination Library Fund itself through the National Fund, and so the children would not have been denied books. However, I think it is fine to do this and to give them this benefit this year, knowing that the fundraising will have to start, and it will need to be certainly a public-private and more so a public or a private as opposed to a public in the future. So, but I do think this is a very good budget and appreciate all their work and appreciate your work too. Any other comments?
I think the reason we're able to do a lot of this is because of our rising sales tax revenue generated. Mr. Davidson, how much do you project it to be over, what we estimated conservatively, for our budget, isn't it, for this?
For the current fiscal year, we estimated, over the last fiscal year, we estimated a 2.75% increase in sales tax, and currently we're on track, knock on wood, that we'll hit an 8% increase over that number, so significant increase.
And that's funding a lot of this, potentially, with and keeping our taxes at the same and not having to do a residential garbage collection fee. So I think we're benefiting from our rising commercial efforts around here. So that's a nice problem to have, and it's not like being back in 2008 and 2009 when the previous city council was having to reduce a lot of programs. So we've got a nice problem at the present.
Any other comments? I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
7G, hold a public hearing, consider on first reading ordinance 0160613, making appropriations for the various funds, departments, and agencies of the City of Cookeville, Tennessee for the 2016-2017 fiscal year. Ms. Emmel.
Mayor and council members, we're going to start with the general fund, which is the large operating fund of the city. We're projecting to start the fiscal year with a fund balance of $11,835,000. We've got revenues budgeted of $25,853,000, transfers in of $82,442, operating expenditures of $25,111,562, capital expenditures of $1,049,900. We're budgeting a deficit next year of $225,906. and project an ending fund balance at the end of next fiscal year of $11,610,500. And we have made some changes to this budget since we met in our public works session last month. So this slide highlights the changes that we have made. At the work session, the budget surplus, we actually had a budget surplus that we presented to you of $21,403. Changes in revenue was, again, we reallocated some of the property tax, 2 cents from the general fund to the solid waste fund. That reduced our revenues $147,530. We have been approached by the tree board about a grant opportunity to fund a part-time forester, and that's something that has been discussed over the last few years, and we are going to go ahead and apply for that grant, and if we get that, that'll be the revenues there. Changes in the nonprofits, the increase to the Putnam County Imagination Library of $10,000. Changes in expenditures. When we met last month, we were unsure of what the TCRS contribution rate is. That's our retirement system. We have received that rate and increased that to 17%. So that's an increase in expenditures of $84,779. And then the offsetting expense for that grant to fund the forester, $32,000. We had 2 purchases that we were budgeting next year that because of the how the numbers are playing out this year, we went ahead and got those items this year, and that's to upgrade some of the police software. So that reduces expenditures by $8,000. And then there was an item in the Public Works Department that we're going to go ahead and get now that was $12,000. And we're going to go ahead and get Leisure Services, Rec Center, the van that we had much discussion about at the work session too. So that's an increase to expenditures of $25,000. So the total change in the budget deficit, that brings it down to a deficit of $225,906 that we're presenting to you tonight. But keep in mind that this budget includes $280,000 in grant matching funds. Remember the $200,000 for the LPRF grant for the state park or skate park, and $80,000 for a fire truck. So those are one-time large capital items, so we feel comfortable taking those out of our fund balance if those grants are awarded. So that basically makes up the deficit that we have. So to summarize the general fund, revenues of $25,853. Transfers in, 75,000 coming from economic development. That's to help fund the contributions to the Highlands Initiative and the Sports Council. And then from the quality of life, 7,424, and that's a contribution to the Rail Trail Authority. So total revenue in this budget is $25,935,556. As Dr. Womack pointed out, sales tax is 49% of our revenue, and you can see here the growth of the sales tax over time. This budget includes a growth of 2.75% again, but that's over what we project this year to end at. So that's 2.75 over the 8% that we're recognizing this year. So the fiscal year 2017 budget estimate for sales tax is $12,759,253. Other revenue highlights for the general fund is the in lieu of tax payments from the utilities. The electric department is $1,157,000. Water department $279,704. Gas department $176,699. We've budgeted $1.1 million for wholesale beer tax, $1.19 million for business tax, and wholesale liquor tax $350,000. And then the whole income tax, we actually reduced our budget there to $300,000, and we'll be phasing that out over the next couple years based on the changes in the state legislature there. There's a slide, a graph that shows you where our revenue comes from, and you can see that big green piece is 49%, and that's sales tax, and then 23% is property tax. The breakdown of the revenues by category: local taxes, $23,430,000. License and permits, that includes building permits, $355,000. Intergovernmental revenue, which includes the whole income tax, is $1,044,000. Charges for services, $255,000. Fines, forfeitures, and penalties, $278,000, and other revenue, $488,000. So that's our total revenue. And moving on to expenditures for the general fund, some notes on that. Operating expenditures are $24,264,812. The governmental agency and nonprofits that we just discussed is $755,749. Transfers out of the general fund is $88,000 to the Animal Control Board, and that is an increase over this year. And we'll talk about that when we get to the Animal Control Fund. And to Tree Board, $3,000. And we got $1,049,900 in capital items. And as we go through the departments, I'll discuss those. But the total expenditures budgeted is $26,161,461. Other expenditures notes is this budget does fund 3 new full-time general fund positions: a support service technician in the police department, which will allow an officer to move from admin back to patrol and on the streets; a custodian maintenance position in the leisure services department. We currently are contracting that out, so we're going to try to do that in-house. And then a planner for the planning department. Merit-based raise, as you know, in October 2013, we went to a merit-based pay system. This budget includes a maximum of 3% merit raise, and an employee will receive that based on what their job evaluation performance is and on their anniversary date. Increases funding to the Animal Control Fund of $8,000, and the TCRS rate now is 17%, with an additional 3.5% we pay for public safety. And that chart shows you the breakdown by department. Public safety, the fire and the police department are 53% of our budget. And that's the totals by department, and we'll go through each department here real quickly. General department has operating of $3,133,000. No capitals budgeted in the general department this year, and then the contributions to nonprofits, $755,000. Transfer to the Animal Control Board, $88,000, and to the Tree Board, $3,000. The police department has an operating budget of $8,384,000, and capital items funded in this budget are $250,000, and that includes 3 patrol cars and 4 patrol SUVs, along with the equipment for those, $218,000, and then roof repairs at the traffic division, $32,000. And then we also have funded the additional position in that department. And then unfunded was the purchase of 2 motorcycles. We currently lease 6 motorcycles, and we were kind of trying to evaluate whether or not it was a better idea to purchase them, but we were not able to fund that this year, so. Fire department operating budget is $4,893,000. Their capital is $80,000, and that $80,000 is a grant matching funds for a rescue pumper if that grant is awarded. And we hopefully should know sometime this month about that one. Leisure Services Department, their operating budget, $1,483,000, and their capital is $339,300. The capital budget includes overhead door, service door replacement at CPAC, an HD projector and screen at CPAC, and Cane Creek Park facility upgrades, $50,000. A mower and a tractor for Sportsplex, $7,300 and $25,000. Fencing for the youth forward field, $6,000. And then the $200,000, that LPRF grant that we applied for the skate park, it's actually got a $400,000 match, but we're only budgeting for the first year of that, because even if we get it awarded, it's going to take more than 1 fiscal year to proceed through that project. So we budgeted that $200,000 just for the first year. And then, of course, the van for the recreational division, $25,000. And then the requests they had that were not funded is restroom renovations at CPAC, an irrigation system at Sportsplex, a floor scrubber for the Cane Creek Rec Center and Gymnasium, and a car for the athletic division. And the Parks and Maintenance division, they have an operating budget of $1,439,000. Their capital is $58,300. And the funded capital in this budget includes a slope mower for Cane Creek, $26,000, a pickup truck, $27,500, and as I mentioned earlier, repairs for the Senior Citizen Center, sealing and restriping the parking lot, $4,800. Unfunded was to repave the cemetery road, a backhoe, and 2 additional trucks for that department. Public Works Department has an operating budget of $3,229,000. The funded capital in this budget for them is $285,500, and that includes brush grinding services of $85,000, a thermo striper of $15,000, a truck chassis for the garage, $28,500, 2 zero-turn mowers, $17,000, a single axle dump truck, $95,000, and a truck for street maintenance, $45,000. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if we get the grant for the part-time temporary forester position, we're going to put that in Public Works Department. Greg has very graciously agreed to take that position, so that's budgeted in this department as well. And then unfunded for Public Works is he had a couple additional employee requests that we were not able to fund, street maintenance workers, and he had an in-house custodian. We froze that position and we are contracting that out. He had leaf vac, 2 hillside mowers, a couple dump trucks, an excavator, loader, some tractors, and another pickup truck and 2 SUVs. So, and that was all that was not funded in this budget. Moving on to the Codes Department, they have an operating budget of $832,971, capital $36,800. Funded in their capital is a vehicle for one of their inspectors, $23,000, public reporting application software, $10,000, and some IT hardware and software, $15,200, but typically we cost share that with the utilities. So the actual Codes Department cost would be $3,800 for that. And then unfunded was an additional vehicle for an inspector. Planning Department has an operating budget of $566,000, and funded in his budget is one full-time position, a planner. So to summarize the general fund, revenues and transfers in $25,935,000. Operating expenses and transfers out $24,355,000. The appropriations for the governmental agencies, joint ventures, and nonprofits, $755,749. And then capital purchases, $1,049,900. That leaves us with a budget deficit of $225,906. And that's the general fund. If you don't have any questions, I'm going to move on to the next funds. Any questions on general fund? Okay, State Street Aid is one of our special revenue funds. We're projecting a beginning fund balance of $906,000, revenues of $2,809,000, expenditures of $3,313,000. Those expenditures include resurfacing and paving streets, $600,000, sidewalk improvements, $35,000, snow removal and salt purchases, $50,000, intersection improvements, $60,000, other operating, which is insurance on our traffic signals, of $6,200, and then capital expenditures is $2,561,000, and we budgeted some rather large projects in this fund. The multi-model access sidewalk grant that we've been awarded, we're budgeting for that in this fund. And we're getting traffic signal controllers of $40,000. The project at Stevens Street in Buffalo Valley of $175,000. And we also applied for a grant with the Tennessee Department of Transportation that we'd like to use to do a traffic study if that grant is awarded. So I budgeted for that in here. And then the STP project money of $950,000. So there's a lot of projects in this fund that we're budgeting. And most of these projects are very large projects, and they're probably not going to all get done in this next fiscal year. So that deficit of $503,000 is probably not realistic. A lot of these projects will get carried into the next year. Solid Waste Fund has a projected fund balance of $537,608, revenue of $1,914,213, and expenditures $1,832,000. They'll have a surplus of $81,433. And this is a fund that we have made a change since we had our work session last month. So let me go through those changes real quick. At the work session, we had a budget surplus of $17,380. Changes in revenue, we allocated 4 cents of the property tax to this fund, so that'll be $295,059. We eliminated the proposed residential fee of $4, so that reduces revenue $334,800. But we're also looking to increase commercial rates 10% around October. The last increase in commercial rates was in August of 2004, so that will generate revenue of about $109,000. And then the changes in expenditure since last month is the increase in the TCRS contribution rate of $5,610. So that brings us to the current budget in this ordinance, a budget surplus of $81,433. The Solid Waste Fund, we're proposing a 10% rate increase on all commercial customers October 1st, and the Public Works Department will notify all the customers of that. That'll generate approximately $12,000 per month. We have 860 commercial and 320 apartment customers, and even with this rate increase, our rates will still be much lower than the private hauler rates in town. Moving on to the Drug Fund, which is a special revenue fund. Projected beginning fund balance of $133,000. Revenues of $55,500, expenditures of $61,750. They'll have a deficit of $6,250, but that'll come out of the fund balance, and they'll have a projected fund balance of $127,218. All those funds are restricted and must be used for drug education and enforcement. And the capital items that are budgeted, or the expenditures that are budgeted in this fund, are drug investigations, $8,000, vehicle, $16,000, firing range improvements, $20,000, training, $4,000, and some other small equipment for a total of $13,500. Tree Board Fund has a beginning fund balance of $13,368. Revenues and transfers in $3,300. $3,000 of that is a transfer from the general fund. Expenditures of $2,800, which are the same as this current year. They'll have a projected fund balance at the end of next year of $13,868. Animal Control Fund is projected to start the year with a beginning fund balance of $153,043. Revenues are $200 and transfers in are $261,400, and we will be transferring $88,000 from the general fund to this fund. And expenditures are $276,426. Projected fund balance at the end of next year, $138,018. This fund operates our animal shelter, and that is a joint venture, so to speak, between the county. It is also supported by the county and other local municipalities. We have requested additional funding from those local municipalities of 10% over their support that we had for 2016. I don't know, that's what we budgeted. I have not heard or received any letters. I don't know if they will approve those increases or not, but we have budgeted the increase from the city for that, so. Economic Development Fund receives 4 cents on the property tax, and will start the year with a fund balance of $899,000. Revenues are $308,000. Expenditures $228,743. Transfers out $75,000, and that's a transfer to the general fund to cover the contribution to the Chamber of Commerce for the Highlands Initiative and the Sports Council. Let's see, anything else? The expenditures also includes the retail. We had contracted with Retail Strategies. They've been doing some retail development studies for us, and that covers another phase of that, and the Highlands Initiative and Sports Council. Quality of Life Fund receives 1 penny on the property tax. They'll start the year with a fund balance of $209,710. Revenue $463,687, and expenditures $430,278, and transfers out $7,424. The transfer out is back to the general fund to cover the contribution to the Rail to Trail Authority. This is the fund where we're accounting for the construction of the Rail to Trail project. That project is currently underway, and under the contract, it is the deadline to complete it is August 31st. So we have projected about 20% of that construction cost into this budget, rolling into fiscal year 17. Also budgeted in here is a contribution to Cityscape for the 4th of July festivities of $8,000, and Christmas in the Park for $20,000. Capital Projects General Improvement Bond Fund. Just to summarize, we did a debt issue back in the fall of 2013, and that debt issue was $4.3 million, and it covered all those projects listed there, but I wanted to point out we have 2 parts of the Dogwood Park phase that are not completed yet and need to be completed by the end of the year, and that was fencing and the bridge. So we will be working on those. And then, if you recall, we did a debt issue last November, not to exceed $10 million, and that was specifically for the Bennett Road North Extension Project, and that project is ongoing, and all those funds will be used for that. In addition, we have a $4 million grant that will be coming in for that. And in the new budget year, we have proposed a new debt issue of not to exceed $10 million, and the project proposed for it is design and construction of a possible new police station, and then you have bond issue cost and contingencies. So to summarize the General Improvement Bond Fund, it has a beginning fund balance of $8,560,000, which is a lot of the bond proceeds. Revenues and transfers in $3,514,000. Bond proceeds, if we do a new bond issue, would be $10 million. Expenditures and transfers, $19,188,000. That includes $150,000 to finish up that last phase of Dogwood Park. Construction continuing on the Bennett Road extension. And then police station, $9.8 million, the bond issue cost, and contingencies and bank charges. So, then that brings us into the debt service fund, which we are projecting to start the year with a $10 million fund balance. Revenues, $3,521,000. We're putting 4 cents of the property tax in there, which is a 2-cent reduction over what we had been doing. The hospitals in lieu of tax payment goes in there, and state sales tax goes in there. Expenditures are all of the principal and interest payments on our bonds and notes. And we've budgeted $3,842,000 there, and I have included in the principal and interest on the notes the principal and interest payment on a proposed new bond issue. And we have changed this fund since our work session last month. So to summarize the changes, we had a budget deficit of the work session last month of $173,000. Reallocating 2 cents of the property tax from this fund to solid waste reduces revenue another $147,000. So our deficit in this ordinance presented to you tonight is $320,000. This slide shows you our current debt outstanding. We currently have $23,553,000 in debt outstanding, $18,195 of that in bonds, and the rest in notes and loan agreements. This shows you the debt outstanding, and you can see the big jump to fiscal year 16. We did that $10 million debt issue last November. And then this slide shows you the current annual debt service payments required on the current debt outstanding, and then the green line shows you the estimated annual revenue. And we have adjusted that green line for reducing 2 cents on the property tax there. And then this slide shows you if we do issue another $10 million in this new fiscal year, what that does to the annual debt service and how it compares to the revenue that's going in there. And then to look at debt capacity, if we borrowed, even looking into the next year, if we borrowed another $10 million or did another $10 million debt issue, which I don't know that we plan on doing, but if we did, you can see here the green line represents the revenue going in there, and that's a conservative number because it really didn't budget any increase there or plan any increase there. But the blue line represents the debt service payments, the annual debt service payments required on that debt, and the red line represents the fund balance. And you can see for at least the next probably 8 or 9 years, to meet the annual debt service payments, we would be taking some funds out of fund balance. But we have a $10 million fund balance. And we planned on doing that because we were able to build up that fund balance because we had a lot of variable rate debt in our portfolio, and we had budgeted that at 5%. And the last couple years, it's been less than 1%. So we've been able to build up that fund balance. So now we'll be using that fund balance if we borrowed more money in the future until about 2024. You can see it crosses past, and then that fund balance will start building back up again. But it does not go below $6 million. So bottom line is we still have debt capacity. So we've got, I know we've talked about lots of projects that we have out there and things that we'd like to do. So depending on what we decide to go forward and what opportunities present themselves, we do have some debt capacity to proceed on whatever projects we make a priority. Okay, moving on, got a couple other small funds here for you. The Employee Health Insurance Fund, projecting to start a fund balance, to start the year with a fund balance of $2,905,000. Revenues, $4,658,000, and expenditures, $4,985,000. We're projecting a deficit of $326,705, and we'll close next year with a fund balance of $2.5 million. The expenditures in this fund are the premiums and the health care claims for our employees. Our health insurance fund is self-insured, so. This is a slide that shows you our health care claims over the last 10 years, and you can see we're no different than anybody else in the country. Our healthcare claims continue to rise. Our employee health plan covers approximately 1,150 lives. That includes dependents of our employees and our retirees. We implemented some changes at the beginning of this plan year, January 1st, 2016. We increased premiums for family coverage by $61. So individual coverage for an employee is $55 and the city pays $373. For family coverage, the employee pays $264,000. The city pays $838. I say 264. I've been talking in thousands too long. We increased the out-of-pocket from $1,500 to $2,500. We have an employee health and wellness committee that is meeting monthly, and we are working on recommendations for the new plan year to try to see what we can do to contain cost or, keep ahead of it. Workers' comp liability fund. This is a fund that's basically a pass-through fund. We pay our workers' comp claims and our liability claims out of here and bill them back to the department. So the fund balance in there is $802,000. Revenue $650,700, which will be reimbursements from the departments, and expenditures are the claims paid, $650,120. The Water Quality Control Department, moving on to the utilities. They got cash reserves projected for the beginning of the year, $10,089,000. Revenue, $14,256,000. Adding back the provision for depreciation, $2,793,000. Expenses of $21,463, which puts him at a deficit of $4,413,765 for next year's budget. Cash reserves projected at the end of the year, $5,675,000. His total operating and debt service budget is $14,248,861, and he's got some capital items budgeted there, $749,000, $3,260,000 for water system, sewer system, $3,206,000. Gas department has a beginning cash reserves. We're projecting a beginning cash reserves at July of $13,784,000. Revenue, $10,133,440. The provision for depreciation and amortization, $700,000. Expenses, $10,117,499. So we're projecting a surplus for them for next year of $715,941, which brings their projected cash reserves at the end of next year to $14,500,000. Their expenditures break down to purchase of gas, $6,670,000. I'll point out here that their debt service is zero. The gas department is debt-free. We made the last payment on their debt issue this year. So, the electric department has beginning cash reserves of $11,098,000 and $1 million in a debt service fund. Add revenue of $55,756,000. Add back depreciation and amortization, $2,818,000. Expenses and transfers, $57,144,000. So they are projecting a surplus in this budget of $1,430,000. Cash reserves at the end of the year, $12,528,000 and $1 million in their debt service account. Customer Service Department is also a pass-through fund. This fund does all the billing and collection and meter reading for our utilities. So whatever expenses they have are billed back to the department. So we're projecting revenue there of $1,276,614 to offset their expenditures of $1,276,614. Meter reading expense is $320,000. Customer service expense is $933,000. And we have budgeted one truck replacement of $22,500. And I think my last slide is the hospital. Cookeville Regional Medical Center has cash reserves at the beginning of the year, $55,291,000. They are budgeting revenues of $288,794,000, and expenditures and transfers out $304,572. And they are projecting cash reserves at the end of next fiscal year of $56,304,821. And that is all the funds. So I'll be happy to answer whatever questions you have, but I would recommend your approval of the ordinance to appropriate all those funds.
Let's see, I forgot what I was supposed to do. Okay, we'll open the public hearing portion. Does anyone have any comments or any questions about the budget in public? All right, we'll close the public hearing. We'll open the business portion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion is second. Discussion.
Mayor? Brenda, I think I missed something. Would you mind repeating all that?
Sure,
No.
you got the time?
Just an observation and a couple of quick questions, if you don't mind. And two very important things that I think I heard there is that we continue to be very conservative as it relates to our sales tax revenue,
Yes.
which has paid huge dividends for us. And as it relates to our variable debt, we budgeted a 5% interest rate, and really for the last several years it's been 1%. So
Yes.
I think that's a very commendable strategy, and to Mike and to you, I compliment you on that. A couple of quick questions. I may have missed it, but I didn't see the in lieu of payment for the hospital. Don't go back and find it if you don't know off the top of your head.
It is in the debt service fund, the GO
Okay.
debt service fund. We put that at $700,000, and it's deposited into the GO debt service fund.
Has that been pretty level for several years?
Yes, 700,000 is what it's been for, Mike, 5 years?
The last 5 years, as a partnership with CRMC on the improvements to 7th Street, they partnered with the city on that, and as part of the agreement on the improvements to 7th Street, the city agreed to hold that in lieu payment and cap it at $700,000 for the last 5 years.
See, and my last question, Brittany, is that you mentioned the skate park and the grant that we've applied for. Roughly, do we know when we might hear from the state on that in terms of anybody here that know that?
I'll ask Rick. I'm not exactly sure. I know
Okay.
they submitted the application, but I'm not sure
Okay.
when the
Thank you.
time frame is when they might hear.
Appreciate your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Oh,
Yes, sir.
I do. We're been reduced penny and a half, about 100,000 from the Hall income tax from the actions of the state legislature. And over the next several years, it looks like it'll be reduced a total of about 7 cents on the that we have to find revenue, 400,000. Is that roughly correct? So we're going to have to find find sources of revenue which will make up for our loss of revenue that we get from the abolishment of the Hall income tax.
Yes, and we have reduced it this year a
Right.
little bit, and we figure we'll reduce it, that way it's not so painful and hitting all at one time. So this year in fiscal year 16, our actual revenue is 458,000. We're only budgeting 300,000 for next year, so, and we'll continue to reduce that over the next couple of years, so.
Okay. And then I think the expenditures from the hospital in lieu of taxes have been stable since 1996 at 700,000, or in that level, right in there since that time. So it's been a long time at this level. But the hospital's done a lot of good with the joint partnership in doing the streets and things around the hospital. So it's been a joint win-win venture.
Yes, sir. Just an observation, well, just quickly, I've had the opportunity, been able to sit through lots of budgets from various parts of this county and city, and I've sat through a lot of lean time budgets, and I've sat through some budgets like this last current couple that have been pretty good. They have a lot more good news, except for the Hall income tax than bad news. And I just appreciate the even keel that our our city administrators had, and our budget director, Brent Emmel, and our city manager, Mike Davidson, have had, gave us even keel, not going hog wild when we're having good years, and keeping us on a nice, straight, even course during the bad years. So I appreciate it. It makes my job, our jobs, a lot easier up here. So thank you guys very much.
Any other comments? All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
7H, consider resolution R160611 requesting TDOT to complete the addition of a center turn lane on State Route 135 North Willow Avenue. Mr. Mills.
Mayor and council members, the planning department is putting together a proposal to submit to TDOT, requesting them to construct a center turn lane on North Willow Avenue, which is depicted on the screen here. The resolution requests that they complete the construction. Additionally, through the resolution, the city agrees to donate property as right-of-way if needed for construction, and agrees to consider financial participation. Of course, this street's on our major street plan is one of our top priorities for improvement, but the planning department recommends for the adoption of the resolution, and with your approval, I will not read the resolution.
Yes, please don't. Could we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Long time coming.
Yes, all vote.
Thank you.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
7I, consider authorizing the city manager entered in an agreement with the city of Sparta for routine maintenance on traffic control devices. Mr. Davidson.
Mayor and council members, this agreement is it's the exact same agreement that you've previously approved for the town of Livingston and Baxter as well. It would allow the traffic control division for the city of Cookeville to assist those city of Sparta with their traffic signals if they ask us, and if we have that time available to work with them and assist them. As I mentioned, it's the exact same agreement as you previously approved. It does provide protection for the city of Cookeville, and I would ask you to approve this agreement.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
7J, consider authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the city of Monterey for routine maintenance on traffic control devices. Mr. Davidson.
Mayor and council members, again, the exact same agreement you just previously approved for Sparta, and I would ask you to approve this agreement so we could assist Monterey as well.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All vote.
5 yes votes, motion
7K, consider authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Overton County for routine maintenance on traffic control devices. Mr. Davidson.
Mayor and council members, this agreement is very similar. The only difference is it was drafted by our attorney versus the TML attorneys. It does provide protections for the city in allowing us to assist Overton County with their traffic signals, but I would ask you to approve this agreement as well.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
7L, consider ratification of Private Act Number 49, House Bill Number 2644, Private Acts of 2016 enacted by the 109th General Assembly, which amends Chapter 49 of the Private Acts of 1999 as amended by Chapter 115 of the Private Acts of 2000, Chapter 31 of the Private Acts of 2007, and Chapter 24 of the Private Acts of 2011, and any other acts amendatory thereto relative to the Cookeville Regional Medical Center Authority. Mr. Davidson.
Mayor and council members, your action tonight would ratify the private act passed by the legislature. This is directly related to a resolution you previously passed earlier in the year, and this resolution and this private act would change the charter for the CRMC and would allow CRMC to enter into joint ventures in Putnam and Clay counties on properties that they don't currently own. Other than that, in any other joint ventures outside of Putnam or Clay counties, those joint ventures would be restricted to property owned by the city of Cookeville/CRMC. The city council would still be required to approve any of those joint ventures before CRMC entered those. And I would ask you to ratify this act.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
7M, consider awarding bid for SCADA system. Tony Peak.
Mayor and council, we solicited and opened bids, had 3 bidders, and I'd request your approval of Surveillant, bid of $96,800.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All vote.
Thank you.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you. This concludes our very long portion of our agenda items of the city council meeting. Is there anyone that in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any matter not on the agenda tonight? Well, we appreciate that. And, very much. Any comments from the council?
I got 12 or 15 questions for Tony.
We will.
Last thing, one last quick thing. They're working out, and until the rain started, out at Cane Creek Park on the mountain bike trail, and it's supposed to be finished probably by the end of the month and in operation in about a month and a half. So we're going to have a mountain bike trail, and it'll increase the business for the hospital.
Very good. And their first movie in the park is tomorrow night. I believe it's in Disney Pixar Inside Out is playing in the park at dusk. So.
I'd also bring up, Cityscape has a new location, and we'll probably have a ribbon cutting or a grand opening of it. We're at 123 Broad, so we're over by the depot. So we're very glad to be in the downtown Central Business District.
Very good. All right. We are adjourned.